Happy Sunday, everybody. Sunday evening. I'm Nate Eaton. Thank you for being here. I just got into my hotel room in Boise. Went home for the weekend. Had a great weekend with the kids and the family. We didn't do much. We did go out to dinner last night, and it was nice to go out and celebrate. The weather, if you're in Idaho Falls, eastern Idaho, you know that the weather wasn't the best, a little chilly. It was prom weekend, so we had a lot of teenagers in our neighborhood getting ready for prom and looking so nice. And we're back in Boise for week number 6. If you include jury selection, week number 5 of the actual trial starts tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. in the Ada County Courthouse. And we know who we're going to see. We're going to see this FBI agent, Doug Hart. And we were just getting into some really interesting stuff on Lori Vallow Daybell's iCloud accounts on Friday when court adjourned for the day. And we're going to jump right back into that tomorrow. And who knows what else this week will bring. We'll talk about that tonight. Here's what else we have coming up this week. Not a black screen, but we will have maybe a verdict this week. Perhaps. I guess we will see. It's hard to believe that we're at, well, let's see what we're at. 59 witnesses so far in this trial have been called. 59, at least at my count. I may have missed one or two, but here's what I do on my notebook. If you look inside here, I keep track of all the witnesses and when they're called. So witness number 1 was Kay Woodcock back all the way on April 10th. Then Brandon, Ray Hermosillo, all the way through. I got to the bottom of the notebook here, 58. I actually had to move over to the back. I have one name on there, and these are just the prosecutor's witnesses. So there could be some, of course, that the defense calls here this week or next week. It all just depends on what they decide to do. So we're up to 59 witnesses. Here's just a potential. If the prosecution questions FBI agent Doug Hart tomorrow, Monday, and Tuesday, the defense questions him. I don't know how long his testimony is going to be, and I don't have any inside information. But let's say that they finish questioning him on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, or even tomorrow. The defense says, we have no witnesses. Or maybe they have a few witnesses, or maybe Lori decides to take the stand. Does that go for the rest of the week, or do we have closing statements, closing arguments on Thursday, Friday, and then the case goes to the verdict? It goes to the jury for a verdict. I don't know, and I don't know how quickly the jury will make their decision. So it's an interesting thing to say, interesting thing to think about as we approach this lengthy trial. What we do know, though, is that there were some very, very memorable moments from this past week in the courtroom. And I want to go through the top 10, or I shouldn't say the top 10, but 10 of the memorable moments that stuck out to me from last week, sitting in the courtroom every day, the things that really made me stop and think, wow, that's new, or that might not necessarily be new, but that might make a mark on the jury. That might get them to stop and think about something. So we're going to talk about memorable moments. We're going to talk about frequently asked questions that many of you have had over the past 2 or 3 weeks. Our comment moderator at East Idaho News, Peggy, has been amazing going through all of your questions. And I'm going to take some more tonight. So please, if you can, let me know what questions you have and where you're watching from, and we'll keep an eye on that. And we already kind of talked about what to expect this week. So let's get into this. My computer just is, it always does an update right when I'm about to go live. So it's telling me it needs to do an update, and I'm telling it I don't want it to do an update right now. So let me get out of this, and then we'll go through some of these memorable moments. I think that worked. Yes, there we go. Okay, memorable moments. By the way, if you've been following this all last week, I hope you have, share the moments in the comments that stick out to you. The moments that as you were reading, the entries and the stories about this, or watching Courtroom Insider, what stuck out to you? Like what is the thing that you go to work the next day or to school or workout group or wherever and say, oh my gosh, you can't believe what happened in the trial with this or that. So here are kind of, again, this isn't like the top 10. These are just 10 that stuck out to me in no particular order, just in the numbers that I thought about them as I was putting this list together. Number 1, Lori's hair found on the duct tape wrapped around JJ's body. That was huge. That was Monday morning. The first witness, the DNA expert. Up until then, we had heard that Alex Cox's thumbprint and palm print were on the plastic around JJ's body. We had not heard any tie to Lori, except that morning there was a hair found on the tape, and it was the tape wrapped around the plastic. That was a big moment. Now, some of you have said and pointed out that, well, of course, her hair is going to be on JJ. She's his mom, and she does the laundry, and she's hugging him, and she's, he rides in her car, and her hair's on there. She's got long blonde hair. True, that is a point, but up until this point, we've had nothing that we know of publicly that's put her there at the scene where her kids' bodies were found. That's a moment that I think we'll remember, that hair. Number 2, Chad's comments to his neighbors. Which comments you're asking? Well, do you remember after this was the neighbor, she's the Relief Society president in the ward. I don't remember their last name, but she took the stand, and so did her husband. I've got it right here. The Gilberts. So not only did they go to Chad's house on the morning that Tammy died and bring over breakfast from McDonald's for the kids, they noticed that Chad was appearing very businesslike, their words, not very emotional. And then he told them a day or two later that he was moving in with a friend in Rexburg, and then a few days later they offered to bring him food, and he said, no, I'll come to your house instead. And he shows up at their house and says, I've met a woman and I'm going to marry her. And so all this is happening at warp speed, but and all of that, of course, is memorable, as I'm talking about. But the moments I'm talking about is after Chad went off to Hawaii and married Lori. He comes home after Lori's arrested in March of 2020 and shows up at their house and asks them to put up their property for bond so that he can get his wife out of jail. That's the memorable moment I'm talking about. And then Mrs. Gilbert says, well, we'll think about it, but while you're asking us questions, we want to ask you a question. Why did you tell us that why didn't you mention Tylee to us? Didn't she deserve to have a life, a car, a boyfriend, a job? Didn't she deserve any of that? And Chad's response, according to Mrs. Gilbert on the stand, she never liked me anyway. Past tense. Interesting. Memorable. And then Mrs. Gilbert overheard Chad say to someone, they think I killed my wife. So that was memorable. And of course, they did not give up the money for the bond. I have it on good authority that they weren't the only people that Chad reached out to for bond money. He reached out to people in Springville, Utah, very wealthy people. He was trying to find the $1 million. Actually, I want to show you a story I did if you're interested in this. I interviewed a bondswoman back when, I got to find it. I just thought of this here. Lori Vallow Bond, Madison Jail. Let's see if I can find this story. Okay, here we go. This was from March 9th. Lori Daybell remains in jail and may have problems posting $1 million bond. This was Lori with her old attorney. And so this was, okay, we have paperwork ready, but so far nothing's happened. We have done our due diligence as far as getting an ankle monitor. We're ready if she does find a bondsman. Let me set the stage here for you, behind the scenes. I haven't ever shared this before. There was that bond hearing on March 9th, and Lori was in jail, and the judge lowered the bond from $5 million down to $1 million. A lot of the media were here from all over the place. It was a Friday. And a lot of them, we were hearing rumblings that Lori was actually going to post bond. There was a bondsman parked outside the jail. Her attorney was there, Mark Means at the time. I was getting tips from people saying she's going to post bond. I remember I was at Walmart getting my daughter new glasses, and my phone's blowing up with all these reporters waiting outside the jail. She's going to post bond. She's going to post bond. So that Chad was doing everything he could to come up with that money. Now, normally when you post bond, you only need 10%. If I go to jail, and if you're a reputable person and a bonds company is willing to work for you, if I go to jail, my bond's $50,000, I come up with $5,000, I give that to the bondsman, and I never get that money back. But they put up the rest of the money should I not show up for court. Then they're out the money. It's a risk they take, but it's in reality, I guess, insurance for me if I was gonna, if I wanted out but didn't have the money. The problem was Lori and Chad couldn't come up with $100,000, and even a bonds company might be like, ugh, I don't know, we might require the full million or $500,000, more than that. This is the story I did. If Daybell decides to post bond through a bail bonds company, right here, she would be required to pay 10% of the bond amount, $100,000, along with additional jail fees and state fees. 2 local bond companies tell EastIdahoNews.com they were contacted by Daybell's representative, but the businesses are declining to work with her. So they're the ones that said, no, we're not going to work with you. Running a bail company can be risky because if Daybell fails to show up for court, it is up to the company to return her to custody or risk being liable for the entire $1 million. So if she and Chad took off, and they can't find her, the bond company's got to go track her down, or they lose the $1 million. Okay, so that's one story I did. I don't know where the other one is, and I won't get caught up on it. But we actually interviewed a bonds company. Oh, here we go. March 11th. Bondsman who met with Lori Daybell describes challenges of posting bail. A+ Idaho Bonds, they've been around since 2018. She's never helped anyone post $1 million bail and is unaware of any cases in Idaho where an inmate has been able to post that high of an amount. She's told me at the time, it's not about the money. I told her I don't want to write the bond. I'd rather just have this go away if she would provide where the kids are located. If she could provide that assurance and proof of life, this goes away. But she has rights, including her right to bail. So at the time, this bondswoman was telling me, we don't even want to deal with her. She said, we've talked about a number of conditions, having someone from our company 24 hours a day with her, having her cooperate with police, things like that. We take this very seriously, and there's a lot of moving pieces involved in this entire thing. So even the bonds company was saying, tell them where the kids are. Again, this was March of 2020. The kids were found in June, 3 months later. So obviously, Lori never posted bond. And we know that Chad went to, ask the neighbor for bond money. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to get detoured there. So we've got the hair, we've got the comments to the neighbors, we've got Audrey Baraterio's stunning admission. This is Lori's former friend who was in the group. If you're really into this story, I would recommend going and listening to this entire testimony because she talks about not following Lori around the country, but kind of following her, kind of going to places she was and hanging out with her and going to these conferences. But the admission I'm talking about that's memorable is when Audrey said that Lori threatened to kill her and chop her up and mentioned plastic and put her in a place no one would find her. She said, you think that the world is all unicorns and rainbows when it's not. That was a moment that was pretty stunning if you were in the courtroom. The fourth one is the life insurance changes. We kind of knew about this. We knew that Chad had, messed, or that the policy went up, but we learned more details this week. The fact that Tammy Daybell had the minimum life insurance policy for all of her years at the school district until 2019, a month before she dies, it goes from the minimum to the maximum amount. And with an addition add-on so from $10,000 a year to $130,000 a year. We learned that she and Chad both signed the form, and we also learned, which we didn't know before, 2 days after she dies on Saturday. Monday, Chad's at the district office trying to collect this money. There were other things on his mind other than the funeral. And when the lady, the administrator, wasn't there to give him the money, she was out of town, he was back the very first day he could with multiple copies of her birth certificate. I think she said 7 or 8. And that Lori traveled with 14 or 15 copies of Charles's death certificate. I said Tammy's birth certificate. I meant death certificate. So we learned about that, the insurance changes. And it looks like my graphic is over that one. That says Alex's gun range visits and locations the day Tammy died. We learned that Alex was visiting the gun range a lot, sometimes twice a day, in the time leading up to the day that Tammy was shot at in her driveway. He was signing in under a different name. He left his GPS on his phone. They tracked down to the very aisle at Sportsman's Warehouse where these bullets, these ammunition cartridges were bought. And we learned that they were able to track all of his movements to the fact that he stopped at some restaurants. I forget. He stopped at Del Taco the day that the kids were buried, or the day that JJ was buried, allegedly. So anyway, though they were able to track all of his movements in and around the dates of that Tammy died, the day that she was shot at in the driveway, just so much from this little device. And I should say his movements, I should say his device. They made that very clear in court. They can't 100% say, without a doubt that it was him, but it was his device and it was his cloud. Okay, number 6, Ian Pawlowski's testimony. This was a memorable moment. There's just so many. And what really stood out to me about Ian is when he said that when Melanie, his wife, his new wife at the time, got the news that Alex was dead, her uncle, who she really liked, she was distraught. She was upset. She called Chad and Lori, and they told her that this was a spiritual attack, and she needed to go somewhere safe, and things would calm down in 2 weeks. So what was not clear to me is whether Ian said that Chad and Lori knew this before, like that. Like they were kind of like, yeah, we knew this was going to happen. It's a spiritual attack. Or if they just said it that day. Does that make sense? Like, because if they knew and had said there's going to be a spiritual attack on Alex on December 12th, December 11th, the day that he dies, and then he dies, that's something. And again, this is the one death that the ME, medical examiner, did a full comprehensive exam on and said, nothing suspicious. So they tell Melanie that it's a spiritual attack and she needs to get to somewhere safe, and she goes up to the temple. And then in addition to Alex's testimony that was weird. That's 2 me's. I've never seen that before. Wrong button. Here we go. The number 7 was the tacos and the blessings. This got a laugh out of a lot of people in court. Lori Ian recalled her saying that she blasted Satan, or made Satan in the form of a taco, and sent him to Antarctica and locked him in a chest, or an ice chest or something like that. And then he also testified that there were, his words, blessings flying around like flies. Lori and Chad were giving blessings left and right. He said when he wanted to marry Melanie, he went to them because they were like her parents, her father and mother figure, and asked for her hand in marriage, and Chad gave him a blessing and to protect him from darkness and all sorts of stuff. So lots of blessings, and apparently Satan was sent to Antarctica in the form of a taco. The 8th most memorable moment from last week, in my opinion, details about the Hawaii court papers and the body camera footage. We knew about Hawaii, obviously. I was there in Hawaii, but the moments leading up to that, Chad and Lori are just chilling by the pool. We saw the body camera footage. They're looking at their phones. They're the only ones that I could see out by the pool. The police show up. They give her the documents saying she has to produce her kids within 5 days. And she's kind of like, okay, all right. They say, do you have any questions? No, I don't. Thank you. And then they take off in their rental car, and the police pull them over. And we learned this past week what was in the car. Cash, $5,000 to $5,500 in an envelope. There was no sign of any child. All sorts of documents, rental agreements and birth certificates and death certificates and bank cards, including Tylee's bank card. There was a book, the Visions of Glory book. There was iPads, a JJ electronic device, like an iPad that had his initials on it. So we learned kind of what was in the car when they seized it that day. Another memorable moment The content of Lori's iCloud accounts revealed. We've known some of this. I have been told from the beginning that the evidence, the amount of circumstantial evidence and stuff in the cloud is insane. Voluminous, they say repeatedly in court. And we now know just how voluminous. 150 to 200,000 different documents. Now, not all of those are related to the case, but this FBI agent, Doug Hart, who's on the stand, went through it all, pulled out the most interesting, relevant parts, and he's starting to go through that, including stuff we heard on Friday, the steamy text messages. And not only the steamy ones about thanks for being in the shower with me this morning, wow, which, by the way, Lori wasn't in the shower. She was in Arizona and Chad was in Rexburg. And then it'll lead to nakedness, those type of text messages. But text messages about, I still think Tammy will be here next week during the BYUI graduation. Text messages like that. Text messages before Charles was killed by Alex. Things like that. So we're going to get more of that tomorrow. I think tomorrow we're going to get a lot of information about what was in that cloud and what was texted back and forth during all of these key dates. So tomorrow should be interesting. Don't miss tomorrow night. We'll be back here at 7:30 wrapping it all up. Okay, now I want to get to some of your questions. So we get questions all the time. So many of you have emailed me or sent me messages on Facebook. I'm sorry I can't respond to all of them. I haven't even read all of them. There's so many that come in. But in speaking with Peggy, our moderator, and in going through my messages, there seems to be a lot of the same questions coming in. So I want to answer those tonight as best as I can. Again, these are in no particular order. But the first question, why is John Pryor allowed in the courtroom? Pryor is Chad's attorney. And a lot of you are saying it's not fair. He's getting a sneak preview at his client's trial. Why he shouldn't be allowed in there? He said he had so much work to do already, and that's why they had to separate the trial, and on and on. Well, all of that, you may have a point, but he has a right to be in there, and it would in a way be malpractice if he wasn't in there to hear what these witnesses say. He or someone who's assisting him on the defense. It's not illegal for him to be in there. The judge clearly knows he's in there. He can go and call Chad every day if he wants and explain to him what happened in court, or he can just wait. I believe he has said, in fact, he said this the other day during the hearing, that he's going to get Chad an audio copy of everything at Lori's trial, and Chad will listen to all of it. So Pryor has a right to be in there. He comes in, he sits sits on the defense rows that are reserved, and he takes note. He's not there every day. Some days he's there half the day, some days he's not. But, of course, he has the right to be in there, and he is allowed to be in there, and so that's why he's there. Question number 2, what is Lori's reaction during the trial? So I've kind of explained that from my vantage point, I don't see a lot of her face unless she turns to talk to her attorneys, at least where I've been sitting the past few weeks. The first couple weeks I was on the other side of the courtroom. But I want to read you what our sketch artist sent me. So our sketch artist, Lisa, has a pretty good view of what's happening. And she sent me this, and I'll just read it to you as far as what she said as far as Lori's reaction. Okay. Okay. I just heard one of the questions about Lori's reaction to the text messages. Since I just finished the main sketch of the agent, I watched Lori for a bit. So this was on Friday, Lori's reaction to the FBI agent testifying. Her facial expressions were fairly standard. Either head down doodling, which is common, or staring straight ahead. I've observed that. What I saw different, and for the first time, was that her right leg was bouncing around with what seemed like nervousness. I have not seen her do that with any of the testimony before. I thought it was curious, and I'm sure others weren't focused on her body language, but rather her facial expressions. With Audrey's testimony, the bombshell, she began by glaring at Audrey when she leaned forward. And I had heard that when Audrey said Lori threatened to kill her, Lori leaned forward very intently and stared at her. And Lisa says, she began by glaring at Audrey when she leaned forward, then raised her eyebrows multiple times and shook her head as if in disbelief. There seemed to be a chuckle, an outright smile, and then again the pursing of lips and smirking with a glare. I tried to capture some of that in the sketch, but her reaction switched drastically second by second. So thank you, Lisa, for that firsthand account of what she saw sitting directly looking at Lori. I would say overall, the question, most of the time, Lori is pretty much focused straight ahead. There's days I've seen her so passionately talking with her attorneys, a million miles a minute. I don't know what she's saying, but it's almost as if she's saying, no, or we got to do this, or I don't know what she's saying, but it's interesting to watch her react. So her reaction, I would say for the most part, non-emotional, very businesslike. There have been 2 occasions I've seen her emotional. That was the day that they were showing the autopsy photos of her children, both of those days. All right, question number 3. What is the jury's reaction? Pretty much, I don't want to say the same, but I have seen jurors intently staring at her. I have seen jurors taking fervish notes. I've seen jurors, I saw one juror, I don't think I'll ever forget her, the day that they were showing pictures of JJ, and we weren't able to see them. The judge said they were too graphic, too, I forget the terminology they used, but they didn't show people in the gallery, just the jurors. And this woman would not look at her screen. She was looking up, she was looking to the side, and her eyes started to well with tears, and she was dabbing them. I have seen the juror, I saw one juror once nodding off. I saw one juror fidgety a little bit. Often when we go to a break, the jurors will stand and stretch their legs. But bottom line, normal human behavior. That's what I've seen by the jurors. Normal behavior. Nothing too shocking, like we haven't had anyone collapse or have a breakdown or ask to be excused. There was one morning, one juror said she was feeling ill. There wasn't anything graphic. I think it was just an off morning, I guess. And so they adjourned a little early. But other than that, it's been pretty standard, I guess you could say. And it's interesting when I have people sit near me who are coming for the first time to hear their observations about the jury or about Lori, because to a lot of them it's surreal to be there in that courtroom. Number 4, does Chad know what's happening, and will he change his plea? Well, again, I just mentioned how John Pryor said he's going to give Chad all of the audio recordings. I assume if Chad's kids are watching this or other programming or reading stories, they might call him and talk to him and fill him in. He does not have a live video feed into the jail. That's not happening. He does not have a play-by-play, someone on the phone with him all day, as far as I know, telling him everything happening. And will he change his plea? I wish I knew that. Wish I could report that. I imagine it will be talked about. I imagine it will. I imagine the pros and cons of if we go to trial, what will help, what will hurt. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. How do I get a seat in the courtroom? Well, good luck. Let me show you how you get a seat in the courtroom. There is a website you need to go to. You cannot just show up, and you have to have a reservation. And it is this website. I'll show you exactly what to do. The Vallow, it's adacountyid.gov/Vallow Daybell trial. If you go to the Ada County website, you'll see it. Here's the info. So you go down here, click here for reservation requests. You click on that reservation. You decide if you want to go to the main courtroom, the overflow room in Ada County, or the overflow room in Madison County. Reservations for the courthouse are from 8 to 10 a.m. The overflow room are from 12 to 3. And then the Madison room are from 8 to 12. You will have no issue getting into the Madison room or the Ada overflow room, unless 400 of you decide to show up tomorrow. But the courtroom, good luck. The tickets go very, very fast. And you can't even make a reservation. So tomorrow when I go into the court, what's tomorrow, the 8th? So I'll go in, I have a ticket for tomorrow. I'll click on like the 9th, and then there'll be a time here, and then I'll fill out my info, and that's that. So it's very simple. The challenge is getting in there. So many of you have messaged me saying you want to come to the court, go to this website. That's the only way. That's the only way. I have to do that. Everybody has to do that. Media doesn't have preferential seating or anything like that. You just have to get on there right at the right moment and get your ticket. And emailing them won't help, but they are very helpful, by the way, at the court. They've been very helpful to everybody, and that they're the ones that decide all that. Okay, how do I get a seat in the courtroom? There we go. My screen just went out for one moment. Okay, the next question, which I don't think you can see, but I'm going to read it to you. Why aren't cameras allowed in? Cameras were allowed in to pre-trial hearings. If you're following this story, we've had cameras in up until last September. Last September, the judge granted a request from the media. So here's the background. In order to get cameras into the courtrooms, we file a request to the judge. In Idaho, it is 100% up to the judge. The judge controls their courtroom. I've never had an issue of a judge rejecting a camera request unless it's been like a really horrible child sexual abuse case or something like that. Or often we're given permission, but we can't show the victims or things like that. Judge Boyce granted the camera request in September. Court TV offered to be the pool, meaning all the media share the footage. They cover things like this all the time. We at East Idaho News don't. We have a much smaller staff, and our equipment is fairly different than court TVs. They know how to do television. So they set up 2 cameras, one directly in front of Lori, as if I'm looking at you, and one on the side in the jury box. They also set up microphones so that the people on TV could hear to fit FTC requirements. Well, Lori's attorneys were very unhappy that there was a camera focused directly on her for the hearing and that there were microphones on the table. They did not know that there would be microphones on the table. So they filed a motion after that asking for a ban on cameras or some restrictions on cameras. The prosecution joined in about that on that motion, and the media fought it, including us at East Idaho News. We said we believe that there should be cameras in the courtroom, and the judge, you can set stipulations. If you want to tell us where to put the camera, we'll put the camera there. Or if you want to tell us don't do this, we'll follow the rules. We'll do it. But the judge said no cameras at all, not even still cameras for pictures. We fought it, and that's why no cameras are in the courtroom now. But we have asked to carry the verdict, to have a camera in for the verdict. And the judge has not ruled yet. I will let you know the minute it happens. Hopefully we can get the verdict on camera, and then hopefully the sentencing when that happens in 2 or 3 months after the verdict comes down. And that will be in Fremont County. So I'm assuming it will be in Fremont County. So that's why we don't have cameras in there. I wish we did, because then you guys could watch it all day long. And my arms wouldn't get as tired from typing. Okay, so why am I getting this black screen? I'm just going to have to read to you. I'm sorry. My cable has so many issues. The next question that you've asked, number 7, what's the difference between conspiracy and murder? That's a great question. Because Lori, as you know, is charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. And she's tried for Tammy, she's not charged with Tammy's murder. She's charged with Tammy's conspiracy to commit murder. So I want to read you conspiracy, the Idaho Code, commit murder, Idaho, and tell you what the difference is. Criminal conspiracy defined: if 2 or more persons combine or conspire to commit any crime or offense prescribed by the laws of the state of Idaho, and one or more of such person does any act to affect the object of the combination or conspiracy, each shall be punishable with the same manner. So they're conspiring to do that. Let me find the conspiracy to commit murder, Idaho. That's the conspiracy charge. Conspiracy requires an agreement between two or more persons to do something unlawful. To prove the crime of conspiracy, the state must establish 3 elements. 1, an agreement to commit an unlawful act existed. So they have to prove that there was an agreement to commit an unlawful act, the murder. 2, the defendant had knowledge of the agreement and voluntarily participated in it. And 3, an overt act was performed by at least one of the conspirators in furtherance of the conspiracy. So the prosecution has to prove all 3 of those things. That there was an agreement to commit the murder, the defendant, that Lori had knowledge of the agreement and voluntarily participated in it, and 3, that an overt act was performed by at least one of the co-conspirators. And that could have been Alex, Chad, or the prosecution in their notes said, in their filing, could said, or other unknown conspirators. So that's the conspiracy. The murder, we know what the murder is. So I hope that makes sense. And if you go research it, there's interesting stuff on there about conspiracy and murder. And again, Lori faces 3 conspiracy charges for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, but only 2 first-degree murders for JJ and Tylee, not Tammy. Chad faces Tammy's murder charge. Okay, the next question you have, frequently asked question, what are Chad's kids thinking? I don't know what they're thinking. I wish I knew. I understand that they, here we go, got it back. Oh, I missed number 8. Will Lori take the stand? That's a question that I don't even know if the defense has the answer to. They have said that they will decide when the prosecution rests if Lori will take the stand. And it might change day to day. And who knows, maybe Lori could be on the stand this week, or maybe she never takes the stand. So that's a question that they will answer. What are Chad's kids thinking? Chad's kids have not attended the court here. They have remained at their homes as far as I know. I believe that his extended family is following it in Utah and other places, but I don't know what Chad's kids are thinking. I wish I could answer it. I don't have that answer. I would imagine they might be following it, or maybe they've just decided to tune it all out. Where can I find the audio? We get so many questions about that. If you want to listen to the audio, go to the East Idaho News YouTube page. If you have computer issues or you don't understand computer, go to YouTube and type in East Idaho News. And then you will find it. In fact, I'll show you. Now, honestly, full disclosure, this question was asked this afternoon by my mom. So if you go to East Idaho News, type that in. You'll see right here. There's our channel. Go over here to playlists. Right there. Daybell trial audio. There's 140 videos on there right now that you can go listen to from the trial if you're interested in that. So I hope that helps. That's where all of the trial audio is, and we'll continue to post it there. All right, and then the last question that some of you have had, because of the way that the internet is, this one's kind of funny. What is Meetin' the Eatons? Well, my family has had a YouTube channel for years, before the Daybell channel, and we used to do like YouTube videos as a family, exploring Idaho and whatnot, music videos, stuff like that. And then this story happened, and I got kind of busy, and so I stopped posting on there. But when I started doing these broadcasts 4 weeks ago, I thought, oh, I'll put it on that channel too. And for some reason, the way that YouTube is, it has exploded. Many of you have found us through that channel rather than East Idaho News. So that's what Meat in the Eatin' is. I appreciate you all watching wherever you are, but that's kind of how it is. Okay, so what can we expect this week? We've got the FBI agent on tomorrow. We could expect maybe the prosecution calls 1 or 2 more witnesses or not. The defense could call witnesses or not. The defense could rest or not. The prosecution could rest or not. Basically, it's going to be interesting the next few days, but the next few days will tell. One thing I can guarantee you is I'll be here every night at 7:30 to break it all down for you and to remember the victims in this case. Those who we lost too soon, Tammy Daybell and J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan and Charles Vallow. And I read Tammy's obituary last week. Tonight I wanted to read Charles's. I'm going to make this a little bigger. The life of Charles Vallow was suddenly taken far too early at age 62 on July 11, 2019 in Chandler, Arizona. Charles was born August 17, 1956. He was a loving father to sons Cole Vallow, Zach Vallow, and Joshua Jackson J.J. Vallow, and a loving stepfather to Tylee Ryan. He was generous and kind and positively impacted all the lives that he touched. Charles lived in Austin for over 15 years and was a true fan of Austin music, University of Texas football, and enjoyed many outdoor activities. Charles' final wishes were not necessarily to be cremated. That decision was made by his estranged wife, Lori Vallow, whose brother Alex Cox had shot Charles dead, claiming self-defense. I think this was written after the fact. I'm not sure when this was written. Charles's young son, JJ, and his stepdaughter, Tylee Ryan, who protected JJ as much as she could, were also brutally murdered in September 2019. Their mother, Lori Vallow, was charged with their murders, among others, in May of 2021. And so these are just some nice photos of Charles as we remember him. Oh, there's Larry and Kay and JJ. And we remember the other people. There's Charles with his brothers. And, of course, JJ and Tylee. So tonight, we remember them. And tomorrow, we continue through the court system. Okay, now I'll get to your questions from tonight. I feel so long-winded. Normally, I'll try to play audio in this, but I haven't had to play any tonight. So let me find your questions for this evening. Here we go. Several people knew of the plans to kill, cleanse, and cast. Can't these folks be charged with accessory to murder from Barbie? I don't know. I get anything's possible. That would have been a decision the prosecutor made. And when you come up with these situations, you obviously have to realize that you have to have enough evidence so a jury can find guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Of course, that's the standard. So maybe some of these people there could have been enough evidence on. Maybe there were some immunity deals reached out. We know that when Zulema took the stand, that was mentioned in the courtroom, that there was some sort of immunity deal. If she would testify, I don't know if they decided not to charge her, because that's probably one of the closest people that could have been charged, and she was not. So did Audrey know Tammy was going to die and said nothing? Did I hear that right? That's from Pam. Well, Audrey was one of a few who said that Chad had told her that Tammy would die by the time that she was 50, that she wouldn't live that long. He told the neighbors that, the Gilberts too. So yes, he told Audrey that, and he also told Audrey that Chad and Lori were to get married and that they would be getting married and that she was to be the buffer between Chad and Lori. So you did hear that right, that yes, he did say that. And he mentioned it to more than one people, and I don't know if it was kind of like a what are you talking about, or just kind of a, oh, okay type thing. I'm not really sure. Can you help me understand the parking situation if I attend the trial? Where does one park? There are parking lots at the courthouse. You just pay. So I don't remember what the cost is, but if you get there early enough, you can park at the courthouse. I believe there's on-street parking in the area, but you have to go and feed the meter. I think it's every 2 or 4 hours, something like that. What I have heard is don't park at Winco across the street because they tow if you're not a shopper. I have not had that experience, but I've heard that. In your notes on Friday, you stated there were things in the iCloud about JJ and Tylee's death, and I thought you mentioned Charles and Tammy too. Can you please explain, if possible, what was there? Tracy, the best thing for you to do is go listen to the audio if you can, or read what I wrote moment by moment. I'm trying to think. I don't know if it was touched on JJ and Tylee's death in the cloud at that point, other than Charles's death. It was Lori texting Melanie the night before and Alex the night before saying, something's coming. I will be like Nephi, a Book of Mormon prophet. And the next day he was shot. Charles was shot. So we've gotten there. I don't remember about the JJ and Tylee's death. And if I said that, I'd have to go and check my notes. But if you really want details on that, go listen to the actual audio from Friday, and that lays it all out. Are you planning on going to Arizona to cover the trial? Yes, I will go to Arizona to cover Lori's trial when that happens. She's charged with conspiracy to commit murder for Charles's death there. Do you think if Lori had been the beneficiary of Charles's life insurance, do you think they still would have murdered Tammy? That's from Jennifer. I imagine that they, based on the evidence and everything we've seen and what the prosecutors have said, Chad and Lori wanted to be together. They said it was about sex, money, and power. And the money thing may have been taken, they may have gotten the $1 million, but they still wanted the sex, they still wanted the power, and having Tammy around, it appeared to be in their way. That was Lindsay Blake's opening argument. Tammy, gone. JJ, gone. Tylee, gone. Other viewers want to know, are Melanie and Ian currently married? Yes, they are married. Also, can you clarify Kay and Larry's relationship? I swear, a few weeks ago, you said they had gotten divorced. I did say that because they had gotten divorced. They were married, they got divorced, and they are remarried now. So where I messed up, this is when the breaking news came down that Kay could sit in the courtroom. This was before the trial even started. Kay could sit in the courtroom and Larry couldn't, but he has been able to because he hasn't been a witness. And I was live like I am now, and I just got the document on my screen, and so I'm reading from it. And I mentioned, yeah, Larry and Kay got divorced, and I keep going. And the whole world was, oh my gosh, what happened? So I apologize. Yes, they're married now, though. Larry and Kay are married. Do you think Melanie P. will be arrested for her part in all of this? Leonie from New Zealand asks. Well, she hasn't been, and she has not been charged in Arizona. So I'm not sure. Maybe after the trial she could get charged with something. I just have no idea. Does the rule apply for Chad's upcoming trial? The exclusionary rule. Why does Pryor demand the full court transcript of Lori's trial? That's from Maryland. Well, John Pryor is going to go through every single word that was said at this trial and try to find how he can build his defense based off of their witnesses. The state will likely call all of the same witnesses and then more. Or maybe there'll be some they don't need to call for Chad. It will all depend on how they want to take their case. And you think about coordinating the schedules of 59, 60 people. That's why they're talking about maybe doing this next June. So the exclusionary rule only applies during trial. So what that means is if the trial's coming up for Chad, they're going to send out subpoenas to all the witnesses, and they will say on that subpoena, you do not watch any of the coverage or read any of the witness statements. They can right now because they're not subpoenaed for this trial. But once that happens for Chad, yes, the exclusionary rule will apply. They can have watched all the media coverage in the world before until the trial starts, if that makes any sense. So that's why they're not allowed in the courtroom until they've testified, and then they can leave. Okay, Nicholas, do you think that Chad's defense will receive full audio of Lori's trial that Pryor's actually asking for? Oh, absolutely, yeah. They have a right to. Anybody can. If you want the audio of the trial, you can make a request to the courthouse. You have to pay for it. And so you pay for it, and that's what media companies are doing. We're paying for the audio, and then we post it just for you as like a public service, I guess. That's our job to report it. But it is a public record, so when it's all over, anybody that wants can go and request it. I think we'll stop right there for tonight. I just appreciate you guys watching. Here we go into a new week. I'll be providing live updates tomorrow starting at 8:15 a.m. when I'm in the courtroom, and we'll see what this week brings. And again, join us tomorrow, Courtroom Insider, same time, 7:30 Mountain Time, and we'll break it all down. And I wish you all a very good week and a great May as we continue on. Thanks for watching. Good night.